right now. I don't want to.
Okay, you're on. Okay, good morning. We've been working on some proposals to give to you. I have emailed you 3 separate proposals. One is our city counter to Article 8 civilian employees. The other is a counter proposal to Article 10, the base wages, firefighter classifications and steps. And the third one is a city's counter proposal to the emergency medical services Article 33. I'm going to go through them. There's a couple of things that I'm going to talk about that kind of connect to other proposals. So we'll go through them automatically. Let's go in chronological order.
Okay.
Let's go through our counter on Article 8 is that it's pretty simple. We believe that this is Article 8 with regard to civilian employees and when the fire department can hire civilian employees.
Mm-hmm.
The city completely understands and is in agreement that we are limited to, with regard to our use of civilian employees for sworn firefighter positions. We cannot do that. We completely understand that. But we are allowed under certain limitations and pursuant to certain laws that I'm not going to outline right now because it could, there's a lot of different ones that we can use in instances. Non-sworn civilian employees to fill positions in the fire department that don't have to do with emergency response, firefighting, anything that requires a sworn firefighter. So what we would like to do, we believe that we have started to talk about this particular issue in our management rights proposal. I think in ours it was very generic. At first we started with the very generic that we could hire civilian employees as allowed by law. I think is where we're at on that one. So what we would like to do is incorporate that particular issue within the management rights discussion that we're having right now. We fall back to our city's counter proposal on April 2nd, 2015. If my notes are correct, I believe that we're waiting on a counter proposal from y'all on the management rights. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay.
So you're saying in your last, I'm looking at your last management rights proposal, which I have from it was a part of a general proposal on April the 8th. Item 21, to use non-sworn personnel in any manner allowed by law. You're saying that
Right. That is addressing the subject matter of which your Article 8 is addressing. And so I think we need to consolidate those 2 discussions with regard to that. It's not 2 separate discussions with regard to civilian employees, it's one.
Okay.
It was just separated. And you know what? I didn't realize that I hadn't separated out the management rights proposal. So for organizational and simplification efforts, I will go ahead and take that out and do it as a counter proposal to yours so that you can work off of it. I thought I had done that already, and I apologize. I didn't realize it was still part of that big document. So I will do that for you this afternoon after, I'll do it after 2 o'clock and I'll email it to you this afternoon.
Okay. So that item 21, you would say that if we felt like you were trying to civilianize the position that the Civil Service Act doesn't allow, we could still file a grievance under the management rights provision.
Yes, generally yes. Mhm.
Okay.
And let me also clarify with this and that section of the management rights and with the entire section of the management rights, we're not looking to gain. We're not looking to gain anything. We're looking to preserve the rights and the abilities and authority get granted to us by law, and otherwise it's already there. We're not looking to. We're not gaining anything. It's not adding anything.
The fact that it's in management rights, would that preclude us from filing a lawsuit under the Civil Service Act? I mean, that's where I've done most civilianization stuff is in the courts, but.
Do you have an example of when you've done that?
Yeah.
If it's part of the
There's a reported
agreement?
case out of San Antonio that dates back to the 90s. I think it's just called City of San Antonio versus San Antonio Firefighters or something like that. They tried to civilianize some fire prevention positions, and we challenged that under the act.
And let me just clarify, we're not looking to as far as I know, there's no intention of the fire department to civilianize a sworn firefighter position that currently exists, okay? If that, we're not looking to say, okay, we've got this, we're gonna cut all this stuff, and that's not the intention. So I will look at that. I think the answer to your question is yes, because basically what we're wanting to do is preserve the rights and authorities and the limitations that are afforded to both sides with regard to authority, rights, and limitations, etc. So I think if we're saying through our management rights provision in this contract, yes, we're going to be held to the civil service standard, then yeah, I have to think whether that be part of the grievance procedure or not. I believe if you're arguing the law, there may be instances where a lawsuit is appropriate.
Yeah, you know, that's one of those where you file a grievance and we win the grievance and you say, well, the arbitrator misinterpreted the law, and
Right.
you end up appealing the arbitration award. So
Because
to short circuit some, I mean, we like having the option, but to short circuit some of that, we might just go ahead and file in court if it's pretty obvious.
Sure. You know, while I look at that issue, we would consider any kind of proposal that would say any matter with regard to this particular issue would be.
But, yeah, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, go ahead.
But you're only trying to maintain the status quo. You're not suggesting that you're going to do any more. I mean, you don't have any ideas about civilianizing positions that currently are being done by sworn personnel.
No. There's no plan in, to do that. That's not the intention. We're merely trying to maintain the status quo. If we need the yard cut around the fire department administration and it falls for some reason within the department, we would rather use a civilian employee than utilize a sworn firefighter who's better served, services better used at a fire department or firefighting capacity.
Yeah. Okay. Understand Article 8.
Okay, then let's move on to Article 10, base wages, firefighter classifications and step. This is our counter proposal to your Union 10 proposal of April 23rd, 2015 at 9 a.m. And before I start going into this, one of the things, and I apologize, we were trying to get it done before we sat here, but there was a lot of little details that we were trying to do. But one of the things that we're going to get to you today, either before 2 or after 2, are the costing, what we have determined the cost to be of the union's proposals and what the city has, what the union has on the table today and what we have on the table also. And so I believe when we had talked about how much things cost, you said that you were going to rely on us to do the costing. We have begun that process. We're finalizing it. I thought we were going to be able to have it done this morning, but we had, with time and meetings and so forth and other commitments that we have top management and here, top city management here at the table. But we will get that. We're finishing it up so that we can have it today. And what we plan to do is tell you this is how much we're putting on the table. That way you can know how much money we're putting on the table and how much money that y'all are asking for, and then we can go through those costs and explain how they were arrived at. Okay?
Okay, I had kind of understood from you that y'all were trying to fill in the gaps on the table that we had provided you earlier of, comparable cities.
Yeah, and that's a separate, those are 2 separate issues.
Mm-hmm.
We're also working on that. I'm a lot I'm at the finish line of the costing part, and I don't do them personally because I'm not good with numbers, and that's not my forte. But we're doing the costing, and we're also doing the comparative analysis, and so we're finishing that up too. I don't know if I can have that finished today. My goal is to try and start getting to it, start talking about it at the table tomorrow.
Okay.
But I'm trying to get you what I can as quickly, and that's almost finished. I can get you that, and we can also, we're working on the, simultaneously on the comparables as well.
Okay.
The 24 cities takes a lot more work because we're having to call the 24 cities and
You're
gather
telling me.
all that information, et cetera. Huh?
I said, you're telling me.
Yeah, so it's a little bit more, intensive in terms of time and work hours.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
So, what we have right now is, on Article 10, Section 1, firefighter ranks and classifications. And we need to, I think what we need to do is kind of define that rank means classification, classification means rank. It means the same thing, but it's just, in the Civil Service Act, it's titled classifications, but in operations and practical day use, it's referred to as rank. So we need to just figure out a way to bridge that, maybe in definitions or something like that. But I included in there Section A, the basic ranks and classifications within the fire department shall be established by the city by ordinance pursuant to Texas Local Government Code Section 143021 and its management rights. And when I say it's management rights, it basically said, that is the management right that is afforded to us under the Texas Local Government Code, or the Civil Service Act. We're not, we're just preserving and clarifying what it is that we already have.
Okay.
On Section B, with regard to the ranks and the steps within those ranks, we all agree, of course, on the current ranks and the current steps. But I think it's important that we distinguish the difference between the steps in terms of percentage raises, because those are raises between the steps which are based on time only. That's the only thing. So we included that in there. We also included in there, which was left out, it may have been inadvertently, the caveat on a firefighter one that says what they have to do in order to qualify for the 120-month step, and that's status quo. Everything here on the current ranks and the steps maintains the status quo, with the exception of the addition on Section 1B5, Battalion Chief. We are agreeing to the addition of Step 5,
Okay.
the 120-month rank. And what we did, it was important to kind of figure out the difference in percentages among the steps, because we didn't have that battalion chief step. We had to figure out what is the appropriate number in order to have that starting step. When we averaged these out, it came to about a 4.5% raise, even though they're not all consistent, but it's approximately a 4.5% raise across the board at each step, and so that's what we used. And that's how we arrived at that.
Okay.
We accepted the language on your reopener clause with a couple of exceptions. Only by the ordinance allows us to not only designate the classifications, which are also ranks, but also the numbers within those classifications. So I just added that in there 2 times just to reiterate that that's the right that we have.
Okay.
Okay. I highlighted that Article XX just to remind
we need to
us.
come
Yeah,
back.
it's just as a reminder that we need to fill that in.
Okay.
On the wages, we have on Section 1, commencing on the date this agreement is ratified and executed, the applicable monthly pay rates for the current firefighter basic ranks and steps within the department will be as follows, which includes a 1.5 increase to what they're already getting right now. And that was, we've come to terms on that between the union and the city. It's 1.5. with the exception on the 120-month step, when we did our calculations, just so it's consistent with the way we did all the other calculations, it came up to 7402 instead of 7404. I know it's a very small increment, but in order to be consistent with the application of how we came up with those numbers, that's what it comes to.
Okay.
Section B, then what we did was for each October 1st in 2015, 16, and 17, implementing a 0.5% increase across the board on all classification ranks and steps.
Okay.
And then we deleted the signing bonus. I would like to see, or the city would like to see, what we come to terms in with regard to wages and ad pays. And I know from talk, I know we don't have a supplemental pay proposal ready today. One of the reasons is because not only we're doing the cost, and that's fine, I can get that to you, because we all need to know what the proposals cost, et cetera. But most importantly, as you have stated, we need to look at the comparables. And what we're doing is we're wanting to look at what you're looking at, want to verify the numbers, try to fill in the holes so we can analyze, okay, where's the union coming from? And one of the things that we are looking at that we're not ignoring is that you, as the union has stated that there's an issue with ad pays and we may need to address adding to ad pays. So one of the things that I just want to keep in mind is that the city has budgetary constraints. As you know, sometimes we still have to figure out where the money is going to come from. So when we're looking at these base wages, this is where we're at now, but we want to look at where we lie on ad pays with regard to our comparable cities and your comparable cities, and then figure out a way if we really need to address that, to kind of do it both with the base and the ad pays so that we can work together, okay? So I just want to lay that out there, that we're not ignoring y'all. We know that that's an issue that you have raised, and we're looking at it, and we're doing some analysis on that.
You know, one thing I'd like to ask for, I may have asked for it before, and if I have and forgotten, I apologize, but I just want to know, like, in each of these ranks, how many of our folks are topped out
Okay.
right now?
I don't think you've asked for that, but that's something that we can definitely get for you. Also, you know, in terms of the ad pays, one of the things that I've asked to be put together just for the benefit of both parties is kind of the historical view of what the ad pays look like in terms of from the contract started to now, to see, you know, when did these ad pays start, which ones haven't moved, which ones have, by how much percentage.
Okay, no,
And
I think that's good info to have.
I think it is, you know, because, you know, I don't know what the global picture looks like. You don't know what the global picture looks like. And, you know, maybe there's an ad pay that may be stagnant, but it may be stagnant because other ad pays were added to make up for that. You know, there were maybe there's some ad pays that we really need to look at that just haven't moved. And maybe there's some that they have gone a long ways, even though it may not, in the grand scheme of things, compared to other cities, we may not be where we need, you know, where y'all think we need to be, but in the grand scheme of things, with regard to the city, we have jumped up, you know, 300% or so forth. So I think that's something that I could also get to you either today or first thing tomorrow morning. So we're looking at all that, because all those factors are important.
Okay.
Okay. So that's what we have so far on our base pay. Are there any questions?
No.
Okay.
You know, it might be helpful, in addition to knowing how many are topped out, and if this becomes too laborious, tell me, but just like how many we have at each of the steps at each of the ranks. You know,
Okay.
like, I'm trying to get an idea of where everybody sits on the grid. You know, like if half the department's topped out and another 25% are within one step of being topped out, that's a different fire department than if you've got a lot of people that are still moving up the steps. So.
Okay.
Okay.
That is a different costing. That what we were working on right now is just costing the what the new monies were on the proposals.
Just, yeah, how much new money will it take to provide the pay raises is what you're doing.
Right, but what you're looking at is what is this already costing us? And
Not really that so much. I'm just trying to figure out, in terms of looking at your base salary increases, you know, how many people would also benefit and to what extent by the occasional step increases.
Okay. Let's see if there's any. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I understood the question, I just want to make sure that the rest of everybody else.
The security.
I was just putting the do not eat, do not drink sign up again.
Right to that.
So basically, how many firefighters are topped out at each step? Is that what you're looking for?
Are topped out and how many are in
In the works? Or
At
in
each
a step, you know, like in
step, at
step
each
1 through
step.
5, yeah.
Okay.
How many firefighter ones at step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5?
Okay. Okay, any other questions? Okay, then on,
33.
yeah, I counter proposal to 33, and this is the first time we've actually separated it out. So I worked off of your last Article 33. Our last proposal was in 4-8, 4-8, I think in the morning. I can't remember, but it was part of a big thing. So what we have done is, and I know we still, on section 1, we put in, what we had originally put in was that firefighters hired on or after October 1st must be certified within 18 months and maintain that certification. I need to talk to the chief and management about the concerns that you had with the upcoming class. You know, the notification that was put out there in the job description set out a minimum, just as it had, oh, mosquito. Just as it set out in the contract, but it doesn't state a maximum. So that's one of the things that we're looking at, and I need to have a little bit more discussion on my end with regard to that. But that's not something that we're ignoring.
Can
okay?
you give me that again, Roxy? It set out a minimum?
It sets out a minimum.
It says that they'll be expected to maintain
they
it
may
for a
be
minimum of 8 years?
Yes, at least for a minimum of 8 years. I need to look what the exact language has, and we can get that. But as I understand it, it sets out like at least a minimum, but it does not have a maximum. But that, just because it's not included in here, I want you to know that it's not, we're just not completely, we didn't say no, we're still looking at that issue. We're not ignoring it, so I just wanted to put that out there. On section 2, I've added a section, it's called voluntary demotion. And this is for firefighter, 2 EMT paramedics hired prior to May 1985 and who served 5 continuous years of ambulance service duty shall be granted a voluntary demotion of firefighter 1 upon request. Now this is a voluntary demotion language that specifically comes out of the old contract.
Okay.
Next, on section 3, we have matters related to the failure to obtain and loss of certification. We've worked off of your language with regard to notice. On those 3 days, instead of excluding Saturdays, Sundays, and city observed holidays, we put including, because a lot of the firefighters tend to work on those days anyway. As we had discussed before, you know, if your shift falls on your shift can fall on Saturday, Sunday, or even a holiday, and when you may get time and a half on a holiday. On loss of certification pay, it said firefighters will lose EMT or paramedic certification pay commencing the first full pay period immediately upon the loss of certification, or upon the loss of certification. We put immediately Because there could be a 2-week period where they get certification pay that they were not entitled to, okay?
Yeah, I would think that would be a kind of a bookkeeping nightmare for your payroll department, but okay.
I think it's all a nightmare, you know, when it comes to bookkeeping.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I'll visit with that on the logistical side of the payroll. On C, the old contract had that if you lost your certification, that you'd be reassigned to firefighter 1 duties, and you would have 90 calendar days from the date of loss of certification to recertify. You had changed it to 12 months, and I understand that there had been some concerns about how long you would actually be able to, it would take to get that done. But as I understand it, if you lose your certification, a lot of the times it's just some additional things that you can do on the computer. I think continuing education, and if I'm wrong, this is the time to lay it out there. But I think 90 days is what we had agreed to before, and what is workable. If you lose your certification that requires you to take the whole retest and all sorts of stuff, you're intentionally trying, you know, that you have to try to lose it in order to get that far. We understand that there may be times when the 90 calendar days may not work. For instance, FEMLA or military leave or something like that, and we would definitely consider a counter proposal that would address that. We're not. Our intention is not to say 90 days, you're out, okay, that's it, you know, you're gone. But, you know, we do acknowledge that there are some extension circumstances that this 90 calendar days wouldn't be workable, but this is what's in the old contract.
Okay.
On D, fire department assistance, we changed, instead of will provide, make available, we just changed to make available. That's what the old contract had, and then it's also easier for the department to make available through online, you know, online materials, etc.
Okay.
But that's not, there's no intention to change any status quo or anything like that. I think we're good on the assistant EMS director. The intention, as I understand, is to maintain status quo, and this just simplifies and clearly sets out EMS director removal from position, the employment conditions, and the appointment process. And section 5, temporary reassignments, we've left that in there, and I believe that's status quo from the old contract. We took out special provision firefighter 1, and then as I understand this, staffing for ambulance stations is now off the table. Is that correct?
We
Okay.
removed that from our last proposal.
Okay.
Okay. Well, let's look ahead to tomorrow. I guess we're not going to get your supplemental pay proposal tomorrow?
Not today, and I don't know, it depends if I have all my, what we're really working on is to complete the 20, I would like to look at the comparables before we did that, because I don't want to be, you know, we have a certain authority, and of course, like I said, we have budgetary constraints, and if we're going to be negotiating on the base wages and the ad pays, I don't want to throw a lot, you know, throw all my stuff into base wages and then have nothing to work with on ad pay kind of deal. You know, it's,
Yeah.
I think we're going to need to do it kind of in a package way, just so that we all know this is where we want to get to. We may not accomplish it this, you know, this go around, but we do understand where the positions are for both sides.
Okay.
And then I think we're waiting for you on the management rights. We can probably work on that in the EMS. If you have any information that you need with regard to operations or anything, let me know. I think I have some stuff that I may be able to provide to you as well.
Is Richie going to be here tomorrow?
No.
Unfortunately, no. He's not going to be here today or tomorrow.
He
AEP, anytime, that's what we just want to hear.
Yeah,
Names on there?
he may be,
He's gonna be able to talk, but in the
I'm thinking about the EMS stuff.
the EMS, but in the meantime, I can provide you with, with data that you all can look at to help me, that may answer some of your questions. or
About the
may-
EMS?
Yeah, about EMS.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm envisioning is having a pretty lengthy discussion tomorrow about the EMS issues. And, Ms. Cardiel, you may know all the stuff that we need to know, but be
Okay.
prepared to
Sure.
discuss it. And, okay.
Are there any other questions on the emergency medical services? And if you have any questions during caucus, feel free to email me so we can start working on them.
I will.
Okay.
Let me back up a little bit on your proposal on overtime.
Okay.
I want to just understand your overtime proposal a little bit better. I mean, the only difference between our proposals is really as it pertains to callbacks.
Yes.
And right now, it's my understanding that payroll just pays overtime because it doesn't relate to hours worked for callbacks. That they just pay the overtime, like if I work a shift in this biweekly pay period, a callback shift, I would get paid overtime for that. But how do you propose to do it? Under your system, the 27 days would only end about every other pay period. Are you talking, and so you wouldn't know whether you owe overtime or not
Only
under
on
your
callback,
system? On callback. So, but they often, I mean, they're working a lot of overtime right now. So I'd say they're probably working about a shift, maybe not a shift per pay period, but certainly a shift per work cycle. And my question is, I mean, would you pay, let's say that was in the first half of the work cycle, would you pay the straight time and then decide whether or not to add the additional overtime at the conclusion? I mean, how's that going to work as a practical
Probably, I
matter?
need to ask, those are some of the questions that we have asked, we're working with payroll on, because you had also asked for
How
some
much-
calculations, how much.
How much money will say? That's the
Unfortunately,
other one.
our system doesn't allow us to query, so that I was hoping to try and have some information for you today. They're gonna have to do it manually, and it's probably gonna take about, probably a week, but they can't get to it until Thursday because it's payroll this week.
Yeah.
So at any rate, I'm hoping, we'll definitely have it before June 11th, but I can forward those questions, because I also had those questions as well, to see how that would be handled. The way I understand it, and this is just me with not payroll and not with all, understanding how their system works, but the entitlement to overtime would not be determined until after that 27-day period. Because you
Well,
would
that's
have to
right.
work, because you would have to work 204, and then anything over those 204 on unscheduled callback, then that would be subject to overtime. So they would probably just pay straight time and then have to somehow make up the difference at the end of the 27-day cycle. I don't know, I'm just, thinking out loud, because I think that's what you were saying. I have to talk to payroll and see how they would handle that.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Because otherwise, there would be no way to know if a firefighter was entitled to overtime until after they've met that 204 threshold.
Okay. Okay, very good. I think does anybody else have any other questions about these proposals?
You do in caucus.
I'm sure. No. We probably need to go ahead and prepare and sign an extension to get us past May the 20th.
Okay,
So I'll prepare that during the break.
okay, will that get us to the June 11th?
No, we'll probably have to sign 2 extensions
Okay.
to get to June 11th.
Because what I'm looking at is just is to schedule June 11th. My only deal is trying to find a location at this time.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay. You're not talking about. Johnny's raising a question about that's ours. He's looking at the Article 10 proposal,
Mhm.
and we're looking at Section 1B as in boy, 2.
Okay. On the contract is page 14. It's meant to say whatever it says on the,
Is that status quo though? I mean-
it's supposed to be status quo, that language.
Oh, I see, yeah. Y'all have changed
Texas
the,
Commission on the Fire Protection.
it's the and paramedic certification, and the current language is or an EMS certification at EMTB or higher.
Oh, okay.
So is that intended as a change?
You know what, I apologize. I think that was to go along with the,
Article 33.
with the Article 33, with the paramedic certification requirement. But we do recognize that even under our proposal that we currently have, that there may be people that don't have, that may be firefighter ones without the paramedic certification who are already getting step 5. Our intention is not to take away, if people are voluntarily demoted and don't have it, it's not to take away that voluntary demotion or anything like that. So that change was made to mirror what we envision to be a continual paramedic certification as a condition of employment, but it's the change here was not meant to punish or take away from people on step 5. So that's a very good question. I'm glad that you raised that. I didn't catch that. But the intention is to maintain status quo, but to also reflect our desire to have firefighters maintain from here on out the paramedic certification. We can put paramedic certification or EMTB certification as applicable per this agreement, something like that. Okay?
Okay, we're gonna try and do a working lunch to get as much as we can. Y'all have some kind of conflict after 2 o'clock?
Yes, there's a big meeting going on that I'll be here, but I can't do it by myself.
Yeah, okay. Okay, well, we'll do what we can, but hopefully we'll, at the very least, hit the ground running tomorrow morning.
Absolutely.
Have-
Yeah, we're going to be doing a working lunch as well.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, and
So-
just in case we will at least, if we can get you that information, especially costing today, even though you may not have something, maybe we can caucus just to go over that, or
Yeah,
just so I can
sure.
give it to you.
Yeah,
And
email
then-
it to me, and if anything needs explaining, we'll get together. and-
Sure, okay,
so.
all right.
You know-
Thank you.
Steve, I'll help you.